First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello everyone, this is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. As always, thank you for joining us. We are live streaming here out of the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom, starting every day around 1 p.m. Pacific every weekday. And we are, of course, at KPTV.com. You can click on the Fox 12 Now tab. You can find us on the Fox 12 Oregon YouTube channel or the Fox 12 Oregon app. We are going to be speaking to one of the lead researchers from a study at Oregon State University that's going on studying wind turbines and some of the effects that those have on birds. You've probably heard, as everybody's turning more and more towards green energy around the world, a lot of wind turbines going up. We notice them here, of course, in the Columbia River Gorge and some other places as well. But birds do run into them, and it's an actual issue that is being addressed in part by this study to find out ways to help mitigate some of those issues. We've got Hagen from Oregon State University joining us right now. And Christian, thank you very much for being here. I saw that this was a study that OSU is a part of, and obviously very interesting, but for everybody out there to kind of give us all a base level of understanding of why this research is so important and why it's going on, can you talk to us about just wind turbines, wind energy in general, and the effect that it does have on wildlife and the environments that they're in?
Yeah, you bet, Craig. Pleasure to be here today. Essentially birds and bats, have evolved to fly through these landscapes and really not have to think about much other than the occasional cliff or other natural feature that might be in their way. And so these artificial structures that are built to produce energy is something they have not adapted to. And so quite simply, they can't see them in a manner of speaking, right? So this isn't entirely accurate, but I guess the best analogy to think about is when you're riding your bicycle down the street, right? And if somebody's watching your bicycle wheel go around and around, right? Those spokes, they basically vanish. And it's the similar kind of concept with these wind turbines, right? Those things are ripping around, a couple hundred miles an hour, easy. And so they just kind of become this blurry thing on the landscape that birds have a very difficult time perceiving. And so it is true, I don't have statistics off the top of my head, but we do lose, thousands of birds a year to collisions with wind turbines. And as we are moving more towards a green economy and green energy generation, that risk is only going to increase over time.
So yeah, that's a really good analogy. Just something that we're used to. Obviously, we know, when that bicycle is spinning, though, yeah, it does look completely clear. And so if birds haven't adapted to that, they're not used to seeing it and then running into it. And as you mentioned, thousands of birds, and I think it's across different kinds of species as well, whether it's migratory birds or predatory birds, all of them seem to be falling victim to this. And so obviously a big issue. So looking at it from that, understanding that it's a big issue, let's talk about this study that you're involved in, or some of the studies so far, I guess, that have been out there to help this.
Yeah, you bet. So recognizing this, and you're right, there's a large suite of species that are affected that can't perceive these things. What we tend to pay more attention to are species of conservation concern, and things like the bald eagle, golden eagle, and birds of prey, diurnal birds of prey like eagles and hawks, unlike owls, when they're hunting, right, they are soaring and they're actually looking down primarily for their food. They are looking up, but they are primarily looking down, and so it makes them a bit more susceptible to these types of collisions. So there was a study in Norway that was done a few years ago where they painted one blade of each of four turbines, one blade of each of those four turbines black to see if they could reduce the mortality and collision of their prized eagle species over there. And just painting those four turbines, they documented about a 70% decrease in collisions over some period of time, which gave folks, tremendous encouragement and excitement about, a potential tool for reducing these collisions. it is only a sample size of 4. And so that's really where our study comes in, is we're looking to replicate that study over a much larger scale, right? It's just like prescription drugs. You wouldn't want to start delivering a new drug to someone if it's only been tested 4 times, right? So our study is looking to replicate that, but we're painting 36 turbines black, or excuse me, 1 turbine blade of 36 turbine black, and then we have 36 controls. And so for Golden Eagle, we'll have pre-construction and post-construction data. And we're also looking at all other bat species and as well as small birds, using dog teams to search out even the smallest fragment of a bird or bat that may have resulted from a collision with one of those blades. It's really important for me to note that this isn't just an Oregon State study. This is a large collaboration of both industry and academics. So we have the U.S. Geological Survey, of course, OSU. We have Pacific Corps, who is the host facility. Numerous industry and nonprofit organizations are also engaged in the funding and logistics of this study. So it's truly this huge collaborative effort to pull this off, because it is takes a lot of funding and a lot of elbow grease to pull this kind of thing off.
Well, and I think that is, a very good point to get out there too. Yeah, that collaboration between all of these different kinds of facilities, government, industry, educational, in order to figure this out. A couple of questions just about some of the things you said. So when it comes to painting one of those, what are the spokes? What's the proper, what are the blades? There we go.
It's a blade, yeah, a turbine blade. Yep.
Thank you. When it comes to painting one of the turbine blades black, so just one of them is enough to, I guess, disrupt that sensory perception for the bird, that it then is able to perceive it?
Yeah, again, probably not scientifically accurate, but just for sake of description, it kind of creates a flicker, right? A flicker effect, where all of a sudden, instead of this big white smear, all of a sudden there's an interruption in that. And based on some lab tests that were done years and years ago, that seems to be kind of the case.
And this study being so cross-collaborative with a number of different organizations being involved, is this something that we could see taking place here in Oregon or the Northwest, or is there already a planned location to try this out?
Right now we're hoping that this study will be conclusive enough that policymakers and others can make decisions as to whether or not this is a path forward. Given the scale and the study design, we feel that the rigor is high enough that it potentially could be used if policy changes need to be made.
And how long, I guess, when does the study actually start beginning here with painting some of these blades black, and how long do you anticipate running this study?
Yeah, so we were fortunate enough to get crews out on cranes, literally painting these things essentially by hand last summer. So 28 of the 36 were painted back in 2023, and we began the monitoring this year on those 28. And we're anticipating at least 3 years of monitoring going forward. And then at that point in the game, we will kind of evaluate what sort of outcomes we've observed and determine if additional monitoring is needed. But we're hoping, if what they saw in Norway holds true, we should, given the scale at which our study is, we're hopeful, crossing our fingers, that we'll see results in that kind of a time frame. But it could be as many as 5 years post-painting before we really know what's happening.
Yeah, that's a lot of data to collect, I'm sure. And I believe it was for the Norway study, it was something like they estimated up to a 72% reduction
Exactly.
in bird incidents. I'm not sure if that's fatalities or just running into them, or it's some kind of crossover there. But that's tremendous. That's huge. For these 28 that you've already done, where are the locations of those right now?
So it's all at one facility in Wyoming. It's a Pacific Corps facility down there near Glen Rock, Wyoming.
Okay, and
So
so
it's all, yeah, it's all in one place. It's a very large string of turbines. And so we've selected, certain portions of that larger turbine string to apply the painting and then identify the reference or control turbines with no paint.
one other thing you mentioned too is having actual dogs going out there so that if there's any kind of a fragment or anything. So how does that work, and how small can they get as far as detecting if something happened?
These dogs they're pretty amazing. And so they're out conducting surveys somewhere between 3 and 4 days a week. They have a set area and they run a systematic pattern, and these dogs are all highly trained. But I've seen pictures of, just literally a fragment of flesh or feather, no more than about the size of a quarter. So they're just tremendous. Yeah, they beat humans hands down, but by a long shot in terms of identifying things that have been unfortunately collided with and died as a result. But highly effective.
That's pretty amazing, right there. That's almost a story in its own, just finding out how those dogs are trained to do that. Well, and like you mentioned already, 28 of these out there, so up to 3, maybe 5 years collecting all of this data. And then from there, just to clarify, once you have all of that data and say it does show conclusive evidence that, this does reduce the amount of bird collisions that happen, you send that into the government side and then see if we can get some regulations, or would it be the industry regulating themselves?
Yeah, no, and I'm not super savvy on that, but my general understanding is that, yeah, those findings would go forward. Each state operates differently in terms of their siting and so on. And it can even be county by county in the case of Oregon with our land use laws. But the other really interesting facet to all of this is that the Federal Aviation Administration actually dictates the color of these turbines. And so we had to get a special waiver to paint one blade of these 36 turbines black. And it's not trivial. People aren't being obstinate, but it's just procedure and flight safety and all of those issues. And so even if this does come to pass, that this is a way forward, there's like a whole set of stuff that needs to be sorted out with the FAA, which I don't pretend to fully understand, to make something like that happen. And then it would trickle down to your state and local land use laws. So
some hurdles to go through.
Yeah, for sure. But I think, the science will be the science, and decision makers will have to utilize it as they see best fit.
Well, I'm sure you'll have a lot of data at the end of this, and the fact that it is so collaborative already in the beginning with having these different organizations all involved, and especially industry as well, which can sometimes help move things along a little quicker. So that's great that everybody's working together on this. Well, Chris, thank you. Anything else that you think is important for people to know?
No, I don't think so. I think we've really covered the bases nicely, Greg. I appreciate the opportunity to share our story. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us. I really, really appreciate it. Very interesting work, and always good to know that OSU is a part of it as well. So thank you for what you're doing, and looking forward to seeing the results of all this.
All right, great. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you. And for everybody who's watching, again, this is Fox 12 Now. We're live streaming here every weekday. If this is your first time watching, I appreciate it. Lots of other segments and episodes. We cover a wide range of topics here on the show. You can check them out on the Fox 12 Oregon YouTube channel. We're going to switch gears at 1:30. Speaking of wide range, we're going to be talking about lawn care. Fall is, I don't want to think about it, but fall is coming here at some point. I'm going to ignore it while it's still summer, but if you have a lawn, now's the time to start thinking about that. So we've got Eric Gordson from Around the House Northwest who's going to be joining us to talk about that, things and steps you can take to make your life easier when the fall comes around. But that's at 1:30 p.m. if you're watching live, so about 15 minutes from now. So come right back and join me then. We'll take a break right now. I'll see you in a few. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.